Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and come into good cross-leg position. When you're there, just spend a little time just observing your balance. Because we associate balance with standing on one leg, but of course there's a lot more to balance than challenging yourself to stand on one leg. Balance comes from just the most simple of poses. So have a wriggle about, maybe move the buttock flesh back and out to the side, and hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. So draw your focus up into the chest and then observe the seat bones. Observe how they feel. Observing whether each seat bone feels evenly placed, whether they're bearing equal weight. So just spend a few moments just in observation, just listening to the breath, just holding onto the knees, lifting, pulling against the knees so you can elevate the heart area upwards, not the heart rate, the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. And then when you're certain that you have found your balance, then release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. Squeeze the elbows in towards each other so that the heels of the hands make good contact. Lift from the heels of the hands into the fingertips. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. So observe the breath. Inhale from the bottom of the lungs to the top. Fill in your lungs like you're filling a box with sand. Emptying your lungs like you're emptying the box. So you fill the lungs from the bottom. Until it reaches the top. And then you exhale from the top of the lungs down to the bottom. All the time just observing your seated balance. And with an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. Bring the tip of the index finger in contact with the thumb, and then stretching the other fingers away from the palms of the hands. Just a simple gesture of peacefulness and wisdom. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees and elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, lifting up from the abdomen into the heart area, drawing the shoulders down so you fill the body with energy, energetic effort. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side. Just observe as you do how you turn into resistance. So perhaps there's more resistance than usual, less resistance than usual. Just observe the physical body's reaction to the pose. And then draw your focus into areas of the body that present no resistance. So we're still acknowledging the resistance, but we're moving beyond that, not that observation, to level out the feeling of the pose. So we still respect the resistance, but we don't dwell on it. Come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. Take a deep inhalation and turn to the left. Again, just observe how physical resistance maybe is different. Maybe there's resistance in different places. But then again, draw your focus into areas of the body of non-resistance. So the focus isn't on what we can't do. We acknowledge our limitations, but it's with a focus on what we can do. And that levels out the physical sensation of the pose. So working with a focus on what you can do, not what you can't. Come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then sit down onto the heels. Just let the legs just mold into the floor. Let the legs get used to sitting in virasana for a moment. So the big toes are together, the knees are apart. just allow the legs to get used to the sensation. So you can put things in the back of your knee, like a belt into the back of your knee if you need to. But just let the shins make friends with the floor. Press the shin bone into the shin skin. Rotate the heels away from each other a little so that you can draw the outer buttock flesh into the inner heel. So that you can draw the little toe side of the foot more firmly down onto the floor. Lift up into the heart area. Consciously press the shin bones into the shin skin so that the thighs activate, so that your spine activates, and then come forward, keeping the heart area lifted as you come forward, driving forwards with the heart area, not trying to find the floor with your head, driving forwards, trying to find the floor with the heart area, but with a focus on keeping the seat bones in connection with your heels. So sometimes we just throw ourselves into a pose, but actually it's much more satisfying and effective if we observe the journey into the pose. If you can bring your forehead down onto the floor, then do. If you can't, then put a block underneath your head. And then spread your palms as wide as they'll go. Press the index finger knuckle into the floor. Squeeze the outer elbows in. Lengthen from the inner elbows into the inner shoulders. Draw the tailbone down significantly so that the seat bones stay in connection with the heels. Lengthening the heart area so that you maintain that lift. So that when you breathe, you can breathe fully. So sometimes the abdomen is restricted by this pose, making breathing a little more challenging. So then you lengthen the heart area away, but at the same time you try and keep the seat bones down on the heels. Just to release your shoulders, bring your arms to the sides of the body in child's pose. So you'll notice that there's a firmer pressure on the forehead. If that is unpleasant, then extend consciously from the shoulders into the fingertips. Or get hold of your heels and pull yourself down into the heels, but that extension from the shoulders into the fingertips is a really effective way of taking the pressure away from the forehead. Creating pressure on the forehead, especially between the eyebrows, is a good way to quieten the brain. Okay, come up onto your knees, have your hands as wide apart as the mat, your thumbs stretching towards each other, and then come up onto your tiptoes, bend your knees initially, lift the seat bones up towards the ceiling, coming into svanasana, dog down. So slowly grow into the pose. Think about the 3 points of the triangle: the feet, the hands, and the seat bones. Press the palms of the hands really deeply into the floor. Spread in the fingers, spread in the palms, taking the weight away from the heel of the hand. And then be right up on your tiptoes, keeping your heels as high away from the floor as you possibly can, so that then you can lift the seat bones up towards the ceiling.
away from the backs of the thighs, drawing the front rim of the pelvis almost into the tops of the thighs. Activate the kneecaps, pressing the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees. Activate the thigh muscles, the frontal thigh muscles, lifting them up towards the top of the leg, turning the frontal thigh muscles inwards so that your heels start to separate. Feel the pose from the inside. Are you working with evenness? Breathe in, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Just working with observation and activation coming out of the pose, or resting if you need to. If you can stay and maintain, then do. Think about those three pinnacles of the triangle, those three angles of the triangle, three corners. Okay, step your feet forwards, come up into standing position. Get a couple of blocks for your hands for baddangulyasana. Bring the feet as wide apart as your mat. Stamp the big toes into the floor and stretch the little toes out to the side. So just be in this wide Tadasana. So the Tadasana is, the legs are much wider than a typical Tadasana, but again, your heels are wider apart than your toes. So it helps you to activate the fronts of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Have the kneecaps tightened. Have your hands on your hips, and then lift from the abdomen into the diaphragm, into the collarbone, keeping the shoulders down. Squeeze the elbows towards each other behind you, and then hinge at the hips, driving forwards with the heart area, keeping the head lifted. Hinging at the hips. Straight legs, keeping those legs straight. And then bring the blocks underneath your hands. So first things first, are your legs straight? So neck, it doesn't look like that. So activate your kneecaps, press the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, lift the seat bones up towards the ceiling, project the chin and the chest forwards. So spend a moment in the pose, and then just go back to your balance. Are you working more willingly on one side of the body than the other? Maybe it's different to how you normally work. So normally my left side prevails and the right side has to catch up. But today it feels like it's the other way around. So try and make the effort of the legs of the pose even. And not just from leg to leg, but from leg to torso, to arms, to chest, to head. Just observing your pose. If you can go down any lower, then do. But again, all the time working from the legs, working from the feet, lifting the legs out of the floor. Connecting your observation with the activation. If you go down all the way to the floor, then do. If you've got a bad back, then just work gently and stay higher. So my back has been playing up, and although low feels okay, I'm just going to come
to the midpoint, just to not overdo it. But keep those legs straight, so tighten your kneecaps. Draw your kneecaps in through the backs of the knees, lifting up into the chest. So draw the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees. Keep straighten your legs, neck, that's it. But just do it with awareness and consciousness. And then bring your hands into your hips and then come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up, if you need to. So of course, straight legs are the goal, but sometimes things go wrong, don't they? Sometimes we are in the pose and sometimes that pose demands different things of the physical body. So it's to work with observation and activation. Have the inner edge of the feet together, big toes touching and your heels touching. Just lift up into the chest, but tighten the kneecaps, draw the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Turn the inner knees towards the wall behind you. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, tuck the tailbone in. Lift up into the chest. Breathe even deep inhalations and exhalations, just observing your balance. So feel like you're lifting out of the feet into the legs. Continuing that path of energetic action from the feet into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, into the arms, into the head. And when you do, maybe your balance evens itself out. So just lift out of the feet. I often think that yoga is about defying gravity. So if we defy gravity in our Tadasana, then the balance feels much more secure. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands, turn the palms all the way out and then raise your arms over your head. Baddangulyasana. Observe how that affects your balance. And then go back to the feet, lifting out of the feet, like drawing energy out of the floor. Like a root of a tree draws nutrients from the earth. And draws those nutrients up into the trunk, into the individual branches, and into the leaves. So although no tree is perfectly rigid, because that would be a weakness, they sway in the breeze, but they have a natural sense of equilibrium. When there is no breeze, they just grow up towards the sun, towards the source of energy. Bring your arms down, just swap the interlock of the fingers. Take a deep inhalation and then raise your arms up over your head. Again, just maintaining that tree analogy in your head, gaining the energy out of the floor into the feet, and then spreading that energy up into the legs. Where can you reactivate, reassess the action of the legs up into the hips, into the abdominal region, into the diaphragm and the lungs and the shoulders and the arms and the head. So the more you lift from the floor, the more your balance becomes
stable. But with the concept of flexibility rather than rigidity, just come back to the center, bring your arms back down, and then come back into Tadasana. So if you think about it, it's the tree's flexibility that is its strength. Because if it was completely rigid and the wind was blowing at it, eventually that would cause the tree to snap. And of course, trees do snap in the wind, but they bend and yield to the wind as well, which is what stops them from snapping typically. So think about lifting from the feet up into the legs, up into the hips, up into the chest, into the arms, into the head, just to find that sense of grounded balance. Spread the toes of the left foot and then just prepare yourself for vrksasana. So maybe bring your shorts up a little bit so that you can do skin on skin, because skin on skin is usually easier to hold. So lift up, spread the toes, find that balance, and then just lift the right knee and just see if you can maintain that sensation of lifting out of the foot rather than collapsing into the foot. And then from there, bring the foot up into the top of the thigh, using something to help you to balance if you need it. So sucking out of the floor, up into the shin, into the kneecaps, into the thigh, up into the hips. And then raise your arms up. So ideally, parallel to each other, palms facing each other. Feel that you're lifting out of the floor, like a root of a tree, up into the trunk and up into the leaves. Breathing evenly by filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And then release your arms, release the leg. And then just adjust. Just bring your shorts up a little if you need to. And then come back to Tadasana, just finding your balance in Tadasana. Lifting from the feet into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, into the arms, into the head. Spread the toes of the right foot and then just bring that left knee up. And then just notice that your immediate proclivity is to draw your energy down into the foot. So before we go any further, see if you can suck the foot up into the shin, into the kneecap, into the thigh. So there's a feeling of upward action. And then bring the foot into the inner thigh. So your arms at the sides, just working to lift out of the foot like the trunk of a tree. And then raise your arms. lifting your energy out of your foot. Feeling that the center of gravity is driving upwards. So as long as you can lift your energy upwards, maybe your balance feels strong. And then release your arms, release your leg, and then just come back into Tadasana. So, just like a tree, there are fluctuations in the kind of upper balance. But if you're top heavy, then a little movement in the upper body has a really distinct response in the feet. But if you're lifting out of the feet and you're still keeping your feet in connection to the ground, then we can bear those fluctuations. Just give me a little indication of how your balance felt there. So everyone's a thumbs up, and I could see that because everyone looked really sturdy. There was no kind of wavering, and if there was wavering, you managed to save it. So just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards, lifting from the feet up into the legs, into the torso. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump your feet nice and wide apart, and then turn your left toes in slightly, your right leg and foot all the way out for trikonasana. Just remembering that if you've got stiff hips, you can bring this front foot forwards beyond the toes of the back foot. Otherwise the heel comes in line with the instep of the back leg. So again, just let the pose be for a moment, and maybe notice that what probably happens is that you land into your feet, that your energy kind of just presses down into the floor. So spread your toes really deeply, and then feel that the feet are connected to the ground like the roots of a tree, and then you're sucking the energy out of the ground up into the legs, up into the shins, into the kneecaps, into the hips, up into the chest. So that rather than a collapse in action, we get a rise in action, lift out into the arms. And then as you come over just a little, notice, do you just collapse into the foot, or can you keep sucking the energy out of the ground up into the legs? Find the shin. Feel that you continue to lift the legs, turn the chest up to the face of the ceiling. Breathe evenly, filling the lungs evenly. Just finding your balance from sucking your energy out of the feet, up into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, into the arms, into the head. Come back to the center, swap your feet around, turn your right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. And again, just reassess the position of your feet, lift out of the feet, up into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, into the arms, and then keep lifting the legs as you come down. Turning the chest up to face the ceiling.
Lifting out of the feet up into the legs. And then come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step. Or jump the feet back together, and then come back into Tadasana, lifting out of the feet up into the chest. Finding your balance by engaging consciously with the physical body. Just come down onto your knees. Have your hands shoulder width apart, palms spread, and then come back up into dog down. And again, feeling that gravity wants to draw you downwards, so defy gravity. Observe where you connect to the ground, and then lift out of the ground like the ground gives you energy up into the hips. And then come down onto your knees. Sit back on your heels, lift up into your chest. Just observing the lightness of your energy. Not working hard, just letting the legs mold into the floor, letting the chest rise upwards. And then come forwards again into Adho Mukha Virasana. Aiming to keep the seat bones down, keeping the front chest lifting. And then just sit back on your heels, just lift up into your chest. Just feel how you have inflated the body with positive energy. Just come off your seat bones and come into cross legs. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the heart area. Again, just feeling that the body is full of this positive energy from the ground upwards. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right. Just observing resistance and the feeling of the pose. Drawing your consciousness into areas of non-resistance, as well as acknowledging resistance, acknowledging what you can do, as well as respecting your limitations. Again, just as you turn, observe your balance. Have you let your weight drive over to that left seat bone? Or can you maintain the position of the torso between the two hips? And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees. Lift up into the heart area. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right, to the left side, sorry. Growing into the pose as you turn. Feeling that you're rising energetically from the floor upwards. And then come back to the center. Just sitting upright, just elevating your energy upwards. And then just come down onto the floor. Just get hold of the sides of your mat, draw your knees in toward your chest, and then raise your legs up. Viparita karanhi, keep the tailbone area down. Again, lift from the floor upwards. So lift from the hips up into the feet. So that takes a little bit of computation, doesn't it? Because it feels different to how we've been working. So lift the energy out of the hips into the feet. Finding balance in the action of the legs. Lift from the hips up into the chest. Just as though you were sitting in baddangulyasana. And then just bend your knees, bring your feet back down onto the floor. Get a folded blanket for underneath your head. Just stretch yourself out along the center of your mat. Just come up onto your elbows and make sure you're in a really good straight line right down the center of your mat. And then guide yourself down into the floor. Just release down into the ground. Just let go of the muscles. Let the muscles of the legs and the arms just completely unhook. So that the arms and the legs feel heavy. Out of that heaviness comes a radiance of positive energy that comes from the bones into the muscles and into the organs, into the flesh and into the skin. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness evenly throughout the body, down into the tips of the toes, into the fingertips, and up into the top of the head. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Just bring yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in the master, your final spinal lift, just lifting energetically up into the chest. Drawing your breath this time down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And send some of that positive energy out into the world. release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. Just bring the tip of the thumb in contact with the tip of the index finger, stretching the other fingers away from the palm. Just a gesture of peacefulness and wisdom. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you've really just kind of inflated your body with positive energy, giving yourself lots of good energy to put into